Apple versus Google. So both of these companies are amongst the most well-known tech companies in the world. Obviously, they have customers or users all across the world, and they're known way beyond just the United States where they started. But how do the stocks for the two companies compare? So this chart shows Apple and Google. This is Apple, the blue is Google. So clearly, Apple has performed significantly better over the long term than Google, and it's not even really close. So does this mean that you should always choose Apple over Google, or why would you maybe want to choose Google sometimes? Well, a lot of it depends on your risk profile and the time period that you're looking to invest for. So if we zoom in, you can get a better kind of feel for how these two stocks perform. So if you look at this, you can see that Google is actually a less volatile stock than Apple. For example, here Apple goes up and then comes down very significantly, whereas Google doesn't have that spike and continues more in kind of a straight line up without these major fluctuations. So, if, for example, you had some money that you wanted to invest, but you were going to need it to pull it out in a couple months, you wouldn't, for example, want to get caught in a situation like this where you had just bought Apple and it all of a sudden crashes really hard. Obviously, it starts going up again, but let's say you bought here and you need the money somewhere around here. That's not going to be an ideal situation. So that's a reason why you might want to consider a stock like Google compared to Apple. So zooming in even more, here's an example. In a way, Google can be said to be a more efficient stock. For example, over this time period, it gets to close to the same place at one point here, but it gets there with less volatility. So it isn't going up and down as much. Um, but of course, this only applies over the short term. So if you're looking at a long-term horizon, it may be better to consider a stock like Apple. So obviously, the choice would be completely yours, and you need to do your own research. But it's important to understand the differences between stocks like this because on the surface they may seem like very similar companies. They're both huge tech companies with customers all over the world, but in reality, their stocks actually perform quite differently.